Today I want to talk about the importance of standards, particularly of having personal standards. The reason why I was able to undergo the personal transformation that I went through at the age of 14 and 15, all the way back in 2013, was because I first had a very clear understanding of what my standards were. And the reason why this was so important back then was because once I was able to determine what my standards were and the level that I wanted to operate at and the level that I aspired to operate at, it made all the other important life decisions that I was going to make far more easier. And the reason why I wanted to talk about the importance of personal standards in this video in particular is because I see that a lot of young people are not educated about the importance of having standards in life. And so this is why you have a lot of young folks running around like headless chickens, just going along with the tide of things, just going along with whatever external circumstances and influences are impacting their lives and dictating what they should and should not do. Because here's the thing, when you have personal standards, it automatically dictates the level that you operate at. And also, it determines the things that you're going to be attracted to and the things that people are going to associate with you or not associate with you. So for example, you will never find me in nightclubs because that's just simply not my standards. I'm not a drinker. I'm not an alcoholic individual. I don't club. I don't party. I don't have friends who do the same thing. And to be honest, there is nothing that attracts me about going clubbing and partying. There is nothing also, regarding any sort of opportunities that I will find in a setting like that. But for others who have identified that as part of their standards, or who've determined that clubbing and drinking and being an alcoholic and being so outgoing and putting themselves in such settings is part of their standards, you will find those people in those places. It's the same thing. When I was 14 and 15, part of the standard that I determined was where I wanted to be did not include hanging around on the streets, did not include hanging around with people that were just not aligned with where I wanted to be, and importantly, were not serious and passionate about personal development and personal growth, like trying to get their life together and trying to think ahead, where am I going to go in the next 5-10 years of my life? And so by determining my standards at that very, very early age, I was able to automatically determine the kinds of decisions that I was going to make. And so for a lot of you, you have to determine, what are my personal standards and where do I want to operate at? And what are the things that I aspire to be like? And so for a lot of you that follow this channel, I know that a lot of you look up to me and you admire me and you see me as a good role model to model your lives against. And I would tell you that a good exercise for all of you to do, if you want to pursue the kinds of things I pursued, or if you want to model your life against someone like me, is to first ask, what are Crystal's standards? What are the things that I automatically associate her character and her personality with? And what are the things that I would never imagine her doing? And I'll give you another example. My standards when it comes to relationships dictate that you will never find me having multiple relationships with multiple men, whether that's, having affairs all at the same time, or whether it's, having one relationship for a few months and then living the guy and then going and dating someone else for a few months or years and then living and then moving on. You will never find me or hear any story, I assure you of me doing that, because it's simply not part of my standards in life. For me, marriage is a very important decision as a young adult you're going to make. And so my standards when it comes to marriage involve, me first and foremost, developing myself to a level that I can be independent. And so firstly focusing on, what my independence should look like, and aiming to be financially independent, and essentially building my own career and success on my own first before I go out there and try to look for a man to settle down with. That's the first thing. The second thing is importantly raising my standards to a level that will align me with the kind of person that I want to attract. So for example, I can't attract someone who performs at an incredible high level, whether he's in academia or whether he's in industry. I can't attract someone at that level if I myself am not aligned at that level. So it goes back to a lot of the conversations I've talked about on the channel about, aligning your frequencies to the right things to attract what you want. So it's the same thing with, attracting a life partner as well. I have to be worthy of the kind of individual that I want to attract and settle down with. And so those are the first two things, ensuring that I've built my own success and I can stand on my own 2 feet so that I'm not a burden on the person that I'm going to settle down with. And second, raising my standards to the level of the kind of person that I have some perception of that I want to attract and that I want to settle down with. And then once those 2 things are taken care of, then my standard when it comes to marriage includes getting married once I've found the right person, settling down as quickly as possible, and then having children. So that's the standard when it comes to my idea of relationships. And so therefore you will never hear a story of me sleeping around with men, or you will never hear a story of me, having different relationships over the course of 10, 20 years. And I'm not saying that people who do that are wrong or evil or bad people by any means. I'm just sharing with you what my standards, dictate in my life and the kinds of decisions they get me to make. And so it's very important that you also determine what your standards are. And so a great exercise that a lot of you can do is to ask, what are Crystal's standards? And if I want to be like someone like Crystal, or if it's someone else out there that you look up to, ask yourself, what are their standards? And how does those standards dictate the kind of individual they are, their character, their personality, the things that they're attracted to or not attracted to, etc. So that's a great simple exercise to do to help you determine what your standards are in life. Because here's the thing, when you don't have personal standards, the people around you, the circumstances around you, and life overall will shape you into the person that those external forces want you to be, rather than you being in control of the kind of individual you want to turn out to be. And so this is why majority of people are not where they want to be and where they need to be that's aligned with their purpose here on earth, because they haven't determined what their standards are. And so the world outside of them dictates that for them. So it's the same thing. You often hear this expression that you're either pursuing your goals and building your dreams, or you're pursuing someone else's goals and building their dreams, because you don't have an enough personal why as to, why am I waking up every day and why am I doing the things I'm doing and why do I have the commitments that I have? So having personal standards is very important because it elevates you to a certain standard. It elevates you to a certain level where you operate at, where you think, where you make decisions. It pretty much determines your outlook and your perception of the world around you. And so, when I was 13, 14, and 15, trying to figure out how to get my life in order back then, I had to get very clear on what my standards were. And I knew that if I didn't figure out what those standards were, I would be very easily susceptible to a lot of the distractions out in the world around me. Because here's the thing, life will always be filled with distractions. That's one fact of life that you can not avoid, no matter how many times you may try to do so. And so the job is not to try to run away from those distractions. The job is to try to identify, what are the areas of my life that I really want to focus on? And what are the things in life that I want to be attracted to and that I want to commit to? Because once you're able to figure those things out, it's very easy for you to sort of remove the distractions that will derail you from pursuing those things that you want to do. Now, I will say this, that even if you have standards in life, I've seen more than enough examples of people with very high standards who have allowed life to distract them and derail them from the path that they were supposed to take. I've shared some of those examples in previous videos on the channel, and the closest example that I can speak in my case would be my parents, and in my father in particular. So, my father operates at a very high level, and a lot of people that have worked with him will know that he's just a different, beast altogether when it comes to performing at such a high level and being able to produce incredible results that not many people are able to do. But despite having that high standard, he made certain very important decisions in his life early on in his 20s that had a serious major drawback in terms of his progress and the trajectory of his life. And so, that caused him to basically waste 20 years because he made the wrong decisions when it came to his marriages. That includes my mother. And it wasn't until after 20 years, where he is now in his late 40s, that he realized that he took a completely different path and a completely wrong turn, despite having very high standards in life. And so the reason why I'm pointing out that example is to bring home the fact that even with very clear standards, and especially even with high standards as an individual, life has a way of making you complacent. Life has a way of dragging you into distractions, dragging you into things that you're not supposed to do. And there are several things that happen in that case. One thing I've seen is that for a lot of people that get dragged into things that they're not supposed to do, that are just not compatible with their standards, is that a lot of them end up getting so caught up in those distractions that they don't realize until 10 years has passed. In my father's case, 20 years has passed before he came to the realization that that's not the path that he wanted to pursue. And now he's gotten very clear on what he wanted to do, but this is 20 years later. So for a lot of people, they get so caught up in those distractions that they don't realize until 10 years has passed, 20 years has passed, or more. The other thing I've noticed as well is that, people, once they get caught up in something, the only reason how they realize that they're in the wrong place and that they've been caught up in the wrong thing happens when either one of two things occurs. Number one, someone outside comes and looks at their lives and tells them that, look, this is where you are. This is what you've been, muddled up in for the last 10, 20 years. And, this is the path that you were supposed to take. And so they educate them about the reality of their current situation, and they help them to realize that they've got to make some serious changes before it's too late. But then there's another part to it where if you don't meet someone, and I think this is the case for most people, they will get to a point where the challenges in their lives will get so difficult to the point where it just snaps them out of this the slumber that they're in. And they get to a point where they're pushed against the wall, their backs are against the wall, and they realize that, what have I been doing for the last 10, 20 years of my life? How did I end up in this place? How did I get so caught up? How did I get so accustomed to this way of life when this isn't in alignment with who I truly am deep down? And so when they get to that stage, they realize that I've had enough. And from now on, everything about my life is going to change for the better. So I've seen the case where you have people with very high standards who have still stooped below their standards, because life has an interesting way of dragging you into distractions, especially when you're not aware. And so this is why I talk about the importance of having personal awareness, the importance of being cognizant of your environment, because when you do that, you're introducing checks and balances into your life, and you're constantly checking in on yourself and holding yourself accountable. And you're questioning, am I on the right path? Did I take a detour? Have I been slow in my progress? What are the distractions that have caught my attention over the last several months and years that have derailed me from progressing at the rate that I thought I would be progressing at? So it's very important that you first have an understanding that you're a spiritual being having a human experience on this planet, and you introduce daily practices like meditation or contemplation and deep thinking to allow you, or even journaling, to allow you to simply just question, where am I? What's worked? What hasn't worked? What have I been really good at over the last couple of months and years? What have I underperformed in? What are the distractions that I've gotten myself accustomed to, that I've been introduced over the last couple of months and years? So you question yourself and you get to identify and inform yourself whether you're tracking on the right path or not. So I find that for a lot of people, they don't do that. They have their standards, but then they don't have practices integrated into their life to help keep them on path. And the fact of the matter is, we're all humans. So life will happen and you're going to get distracted. And I assure you that nothing will go according to your plan 100%. And so you'll find that you have to spend a couple years working through your faults and your inadequacies and your distractions and your weaknesses until you sort of find your stride and find your way back to the path that you need to be on. But the important thing is you can avoid letting years and years and decades pass by you before you even realize that you're on the right path, or you've been caught up in things that you're not supposed to be caught up in. And so having high standards is very important, but I would highly emphasize and suggest that you need to balance that with a daily practice that allows you to check in on yourself, to keep yourself accountable, because no one else is going to do that. And I found through experience that the world is full of distractions waiting to basically capture your attention, waiting to basically capture your mind. And distractions are essentially built to consume someone. So, and when you're consumed in things, you can't realize it until you take a step out of it, or until someone on the outside comes and sees that you're caught up in that distraction and informs you of it, educates you about it. So you want to have high personal standards for yourself that dictate how you operate, the decisions you make, and the kind of path that your life is going to take. And then you want to add a layer of protection. You want to add checks and balances into your life by having daily practices where you get to think and ponder your life. And I found that when I do that, it's helped me to not only maintain my standards, but importantly to identify the small things that I may not notice that are gnawing at my energy, that are gnawing at my attention, and that are stopping me from focusing on what's of most importance to me. Because you don't want to be busy in life. You want to be pursuing things that are producing great results for you, that help to move the needle forward for you, whether it's in your academic studies, whether it's in your business, whether it's in your profession, whatever the case may be for you. So I thought I'd just make a video today about the importance of standards, personal standards in particular, because I don't see that a lot of young people are educated about this. And I think that it's one of the most important things that you can do for yourself to determine the level that you want to operate at. Because once you determine your standards, I tell you, it's very easy to make certain decisions in life, especially decisions that have to do with what trajectory your life is going to take and the kind of path that you're going to pursue. And for a lot of people, they have good standards in life, but because they don't safeguard themselves from the many distractions of life that are continuously going to come up, they end up making one very bad decision that completely destroys their life forever, and they're never the same again. And I've talked about several examples about people that I know closest to me that have done that have experienced that. So it's very important that you have personal standards, but you back those up with checks and balances that enable you to make sure that you're keeping yourself accountable and that you're checking in on yourself, because no one else is going to be looking out for you. You have to be the one to have to do that for yourself. So for a lot of you out there that have been following the channel and that have looked up to me and admire me, I want to tell you that you have to first get very clear about what your personal standards are. And you have to determine that this is the level that I want to operate at. And once you determine that, you automatically know the kinds of decisions you need to make. And a lot of it will be to let go of things that are not in alignment with that standard that you want to operate at. And when you begin to do that, you slowly start to move towards that ideal future, that ideal personality that you want to develop long term. So I hope the video provided a few insights into the importance of personal standards. If you've got any questions, be sure to leave them down in the comments and I'll be happy to reply to them. Anyone can aspire to be something bigger than they are today. I want you to remember that. But you have to first have a desire. Importantly, a genuine desire to want to be different, to want to be better, it doesn't have to be, a grand transformation that you're looking for, like what I went through at 13. But it can be that if you're already at a good place, it can be that I want to be 10% better the next year. Or I'm at this level now and I've identified this person at my workplace or in my community or in my school that I want to be able to operate like. And then you identify, okay, I just need to get 20% better this year or over the next 2 years. But you identify what your standards are and you aim for those things and you don't stoop below them. That's another important thing I want you to remember, that once your standards are in place, never stoop below your standards, because your standards are there for a reason. They're there to help you operate at a certain level. But once you stoop below them, then you're essentially teaching the world, you're essentially teaching people around you how to treat you. And you're teaching them that you're a person that lacks standards. You're a person that is easily influenced. You're a person that's easily able to be taken advantage of. And you don't want that. So you want to have standards and you want to maintain those standards. And then you want to have checks and balances in place that enable you to be able to make sure that you're on the path. So I hope this video was helpful. This type of video is going to be a part of several more that I'm going to put out where it's completely unscripted. But whenever I have insight into important things that I think would be valuable to all you young people out there, I'm going to be doing videos like this where I just talk to you all, unscripted, just sharing my thoughts about important topics that I think are going to be of importance to you. So I hope this was very helpful. Again, leave your comments below. I'd be happy to reply to anyone who has any questions regarding this. Thanks everyone. Catch you in the next video. Bye.